appeared in Japan, South Africa, India, and South America at the same time. They were not related to each other, no transmission chain, no shared patient, no flight path connecting them. 4 completely separate versions of the same species on 4 different continents emerging within years of each other, each one already drug-resistant before anyone found it. That is not how biology works. That has never happened before with any pathogen in recorded medical history. The CDC researchers who sequenced every strain and compared the genomes published their findings in a peer-reviewed journal and used a word that almost never appears in scientific literature: mystifying. Not unusual, not unexpected, mystifying. They had no explanation. The best minds in fungal disease, with full genomic data in front of them, looked at what this organism had done and wrote that word. And here is what makes that word terrifying. The leading theory for how this happened involves the temperature of the planet. The idea that global warming selected an environmental fungus to cross a barrier that has protected humans from fungal infection for millions of years. If that theory is right, this was not a one-time event. It was a preview. This organism kills roughly half the people it reaches in the bloodstream. It survives on hospital surfaces for weeks. It resists every major class of antifungal drug, and the CDC knows exactly which hospitals in the United States currently have outbreaks. They sign contracts promising not to say which ones. That policy is still in place today. And this is the story of how something that should not exist got into the walls of modern medicine, and why the people who know where it is are legally forbidden from telling you. The first time anyone identified it was 2009. A microbiologist named Kazuo Satoh isolated it from the ear canal of a 70-year-old woman at a hospital in Tokyo. He named it Candida auris, Latin for ear. He noted something unusual immediately. The organism grew comfortably at 40 degrees Celsius. It could survive slowly at 42. That matters because of a fact most people have never thought about. The reason fungi rarely infect healthy humans is temperature. Most fungal species hit a wall around 37 degrees Celsius, which is body temperature. They devastate cold-blooded animals. They have driven entire amphibian species to extinction. They destroy crops. But warm-blooded mammals run too hot for most of them to survive inside us. Candida auris was not bothered by that wall. But 2009 was not actually the beginning. Researchers later went back through archive samples from hospitals around the world and found something that shifted the entire timeline. A South Korean collection. A blood sample from December 1996. A 1-year-old girl who had emergency surgery to remove a chicken bone from her throat developed a bloodstream infection, candidemia in clinical terms, that would not clear, and died. Her sample had been sitting in an archive for 13 years, labelled as a harmless organism called Rhodotorula glutenis. When they ran the correct test on it, it was Candida auris. The organism had been present, spreading, killing, and getting called the wrong name since at least 1996. The machines hospitals trusted to identify pathogens kept misreading it. Doctors treated patients for infections they did not have. The real infection kept moving. 13 years of invisible spread before medicine could even see it. In 2017, the CDC published the paper that changed how infectious disease specialists understood what they were dealing with. Sean Lockhart, Anastasia Litvinseva, Tom Chiller, and their team had collected Candida auris samples from every major outbreak across every affected country and sequenced their entire genomes. The result should not have been possible. Within each geographic group, the samples were nearly identical, separated by maybe 70 mutations. Normal, expected, organisms from the same lineage. Between the groups, tens of thousands of mutations. The South Asian strain and the South African strain were not related to each other. The South American strain was not related to either of them. They had not spread from a common source. They had not travelled. They had emerged, separately, independently, in the same narrow window of time. The paper's exact language: Candida auris had emerged recently, independently, and almost simultaneously on 3 continents. Independently, simultaneously. 2 words that cannot both be true without an explanation that goes far beyond standard epidemiology. Arturo Casadevall chairs the Department of Molecular Microbiology and Immunology at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. In 2019, he published a paper in the journal MBio, laying out what he believed was the only explanation that fit all the evidence. His argument starts with a number: 37 degrees Celsius. That is human body temperature, and for most of the history of complex life on Earth, it has been an invisible wall between mammals and fungal infection. The warmth of our blood, which we evolved not as a defense, but simply as a metabolic feature, has functioned as one of our most powerful protections against an entire kingdom of organisms. Fungi adapt slowly to heat. We have been warm long enough that most species that could threaten us never developed the tools to survive inside us. Casadevall's argument, that wall is moving. He called this the thermal barrier hypothesis. As average global temperatures rise, environmental fungi are being selected for heat tolerance, for thermotolerance. The organisms that survive slightly warmer conditions reproduce more. Pass that tolerance on. Over generations, the threshold creeps upward. And somewhere in that process, Candida auris crossed the line. 4 continents, 4 independent crossings, the same window of time. Casadevall argued that only a global trigger, something happening to the entire planet simultaneously, could produce simultaneous emergence in 4 unconnected locations. A warming planet was the only trigger operating everywhere at once. He is careful. The paper acknowledges this has not been fully proven. His 2021 follow-up admitted the hypothesis still needs validation. Other researchers point to agricultural fungicide use driving resistance mutations in environmental fungi. Both mechanisms are possible. Neither is ruled out. But here is the sentence from that 2019 paper that should keep people awake at night. If climate change can select one environmental fungus to adapt to human body temperature, there is no specific biological reason it happens only once. Casadevall noted that. Others have noted that. The WHO placed Candida auris at the top of its fungal priority pathogens list in 2022, alongside pathogens that have collectively killed hundreds of millions of people. They did not do that because of one organism in 39 US states. They did it because of what this organism represents as a category. Here is what it does when it reaches you. For most people, nothing visible. Candida auris colonizes skin silently. No symptoms, no illness. You carry it and do not know. You transfer it to a bed rail and it survives there for 3 weeks. You transfer it to a blood pressure cuff and it is viable the next day. Researchers tested 191 environmental surfaces at a single Chicago nursing facility. 39% came back positive. The glucometers, the temperature probes, the windowsills, the bed rails, equipment that touches patient after patient all day, every day. In healthy people, this stays on the surface, but in the patients who cannot fight it, the ones on mechanical ventilators, on central venous catheters, on weeks of broad-spectrum antibiotics, that have stripped the body's competing microorganisms bare, the organism moves. It enters the blood. And then the numbers change completely. Roughly 40 to 47% of bloodstream infections are fatal within 30 days. That figure comes from a CDC analysis of 192 hospitalizations across 42 US hospitals. It is confirmed by a global meta-analysis of over 4,000 cases across 33 countries. For comparison, bacterial sepsis treated in an ICU kills around 20 to 25% of patients. Candida auris candidemia kills at roughly double that rate. And there is almost nothing left to treat it with. Fluconazole is the drug doctors have reached for with Candida infections for 30 years. Cheap, oral, well tolerated. 95% of US Candida auris isolates tested in 2023 were resistant to it. The South Asian strain carries a mutation called K143R. The South African strain carries a different mutation in the same gene. Each one independently evolved a different solution to the same drug. The backup class is Echinocandins. These are what doctors use now, and resistance to them is still around 1% of isolates. Watch that number. Because in July 2021, the CDC published something that had not been seen before. 2 transmission clusters, one in Texas, one in Washington, D.C. Pan-drug-resistant strains, resistant to azoles, echinocandins, and polyenes, all 3 drug classes simultaneously. And in both clusters, the patients had not received echinocandins before they were tested. The resistance did not develop under drug pressure inside those patients. It arrived, patient to patient, drug-resistant from the start. 10 patients, 3 died in Texas alone. Pan-drug-resistant Candida auris cases in the United States remained below 20 through 2023. That is how every resistance problem starts, small, and then it isn't. In April 2015, a patient in the cardiothoracic ICU at Royal Brompton Hospital in London developed a nosocomial infection, a healthcare-associated infection in his sternal wound. The lab identified Candida auris. Within 1 week, the patient in the next bed was positive. Over the following 16 months, 50 patients became colonized or infected. 9 had it in the bloodstream. The hospital deployed enhanced isolation, chlorhexidine bathing, hydrogen peroxide vapor pumped into decontaminated rooms. Still spreading. They closed the ICU. Tom Chiller from the CDC's Fungal Diseases branch described what Royal Brompton did as the Cadillac of drastic actions. He noted specifically that these were steps they generally wouldn't be doing for candidal infections. A fungus had forced a London hospital to shut down its intensive care unit. The paper documenting that outbreak was not published until October 2016, more than a year after it began. Which brings us to the piece of this story that receives the least attention and matters the most. In April 2019, New York Times reporter Matt Richtel investigated Candida auris. He found something written plainly into the CDC's own agreements with state health departments. The CDC is contractually barred from publicly identifying hospitals with Candida auris outbreaks. The agency that tracks outbreaks across the United States knows exactly which hospitals have active cases. That information goes to the state health departments. It goes no further, not to other hospitals in the same city, not to patients about to be transferred into an affected ward, not to you. The justification: hospitals need to feel safe reporting cases, and naming them publicly would stop cooperation. Which means the surveillance system that exists to protect patients is built on a promise to protect institutions first. The Times called it a culture of secrecy. CDC officials called it a necessary condition for getting any data at all. Both things are true at the same time. Right now, in a healthcare facility in one of 39 states, Candida auris is present. The CDC knows, the state health department knows. The patient being wheeled into that ward tomorrow may not. Their doctor may not be told, and no law requires anyone to change that. The nursing home angle is where this becomes personal in a different way. In Chicago, researchers tracked colonization rates across every type of healthcare facility between 2016 and 2018. Short-term acute care hospitals, near zero. Regular skilled nursing facilities, near zero. Ventilator-capable skilled nursing facilities, 66% median colonization rate. 2/3 of patients in those facilities were carrying the organism. At one facility tracked over time, the rate climbed from 43 to 71% in a single year. These are not ICUs. These are the places where people go after the hospital. The step-down facilities, the long-term care units, the places families visit on weekends. The residents there are on ventilators, feeding tubes, central lines. They have been on antibiotics for months. Their immune systems are depleted, and they are in facilities where the organism is on the bed rails, the blood pressure cuffs, the hands of the staff moving between rooms. Colonization persists for months. Some documented cases exceed 200 days. A patient discharged from an affected facility carries it to the next one. No test exists to screen for it on admission. No law requires disclosure. In January 2026, the daughters of a 72-year-old man named Charles Brush filed a wrongful death lawsuit against a nursing home in Ohio. They allege their father developed Candida auris in March 2024. They allege it went untreated for approximately a year. They allege the family was never told. Charles Brush died on March 26, 2025. His attorney said, "The fact that this was missed, that there was an infection that was missed for a year, is shocking." The coroner listed cause of death as heart disease due to pneumonia. The case is unresolved, but the question the family is asking is the same question that sits underneath every Candida auris death. How much did the thing they were never told about contribute to what happened? US clinical cases went from 53 in 2016 to 1,471 in 2021, a 95% jump in a single year. By 2023, 4,514 cases across 39 states. COVID accelerated everything. PPE ran short, gowns were reused, hand hygiene protocols broke down under the weight of overwhelmed wards. ICUs filled with exactly the kind of patient Candida auris needs: ventilated, catheterized, maximal antibiotics, too sick to fight. The new antifungal pipeline exists. Ibrexa fungerp, a first-in-class triterpenoid antifungal approved June 2021, the first new antifungal drug class in over 20 years. Rezafungin, approved March 2023. Fosmanogepix trials. These drugs are real, and some show activity against Candida auris in laboratory testing. Whether they stay ahead of resistance is a question nobody can answer right now. And that brings us back to the word Arturo Casadevall used, mystifying. He used it twice in the same paper. Scientists do not use that word. They have an entire vocabulary built to describe uncertainty with precision. Mystifying is not in that vocabulary. It is what you write when the data is complete, the methods are sound, the analysis is thorough, and what you are looking at still should not be there. 4 continents, 4 independent emergencies, the same window of time. And the best available explanation is that we changed the temperature of the planet, and something that could never reach us started learning how. The man at Mount Sinai, Brooklyn, spent 90 days in that room. They tore out the ceiling tiles. They tore out the floor tiles. It was still there. Somewhere tonight, in a facility in one of 39 states, so is it. And the answer to how it got there, and what it means for everything that comes after it, is still in a word on the page of a peer-reviewed journal. Mystifying. The logs are still falling. They just changed what they call them. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.